Hey guys, it's Mike here, and I've had my SSG24 Batch 2 for almost 3 years now, and I've done my fair share of upgrades and modifications to it. It can be quite tedious to find all of this information on your own, so hopefully this will serve you as a great starting point. Either you just got the gun, or you've been playing with it for a while now, and you're ready to do some upgrades to it. I hope you learned something new in this video, and there's going to be a list with all the mods and upgrades I mentioned down in the video description. So let's get started. So first things first, I removed the safety switch. I replaced it with a safety dust cover to make sure that dust and water doesn't get in. It's a personal preference, but I was accidentally turning it on way too often, and I really don't like the feeling of occasionally missing a shot because of it. While we're on the topic of safety, there's a secondary safety mechanism built into the gun that locks the trigger while racking the bolt. This is something to keep in mind, as mine started malfunctioning just recently by not allowing me to pull the trigger at seemingly random moments, so I had to remove it. This can be done by unscrewing the screw on the left side of the trigger box and removing the small metal piece and spring. You'll now be able to pull the trigger even while the bolt handle is racked all the way back, so make sure you don't do that, as that can damage the gun. This is not something you need to do right away, just keep this in mind if you start having the same issue. Next thing I did was I replaced the glide rings with 3D printed ones. Those are the plastic pieces that work as bushings between the receiver and the cylinder. I made my own, but most people are using famous orange glide rings. They're made out of PETG, and they improve the smoothness of the bolt pull as well as alignment of the cylinder nozzle, so it doesn't hit the hop-up chamber. I'm not sure how good are the new tire glide rings installed by default in the newer batches, but this is a must-have for most SSGs up until batch 4 for sure. While on the topic of bolt pull, I recently started having a very scratchy bolt pull. This was caused by wear and tear between the cylinder edges and the spring guide stopper. To get rid of this issue, I wet sanded the edges on the cylinder cutout, starting with the 320 grit, then moving to 600, then 1000, and finally finishing it up with 2000. I also did the same thing for spring guide stopper itself, where it contacts the cylinder. This should result in quite polished edges, which mostly solved the issue for me, but we'll see if it lasts. This next one is less of an upgrade, but something I think is a must-have for SSG24 owners, as it makes your life that much easier, and that's the SSG24 Speedloader mag adapter. There is one that comes with a gun, and it works just fine, but it's a separate piece that you have to carry around, and I lost it after the first few games. This one attaches directly to the Speedloader, and is fixed in place with a screw. And yes, I know it's totally possible to fill up the magazines by pinching the mag lips with your fingers to align the Speedloader in the correct position, but as one guy said it, with this adapter, even Monkey could do it. Next up is probably the best upgrade you can do to make the SSG24 shoot better and more consistently, and that's the TDC Mod. The TDC stands for Top Dead Center, and what it essentially does, it replaces the stock clicky hop-up adjustment tab with a screw that pushes down on the hop-up arm from the top. This gives you basically infinite clicks to your hop-up, as you can adjust it by incredibly small increments very precisely. With the stock mechanism, it often feels like you're either slightly over-hopping or under-hopping the BBs, and it's preventing you from achieving the absolute flattest trajectory. Before switching to TDC, I also tried doing the smooth hop mod, in which you remove the spring and the plunger from the stock mechanism, but with no feedback, it was super hard to adjust the tab, since you can't tell when you actually move the tab and by how much. I would also often bump the tab with my gloves on, which ended up missing some shots because of a misaligned hop-up. That said, I personally think that the TDC mod is a must-have, and especially if you're using or planning to use an R-hop. More on that later. So there are several TDC versions available for the SSG24, but the one I'm using is the mini TDC made by TRIDOS.DESIGN. It requires no gluing and is super easy to install. It comes with drill jigs to make a precise hole in the outer barrel, even with a cordless drill. What's unique for this TDC is that the hop-up arms and the TDC itself are combined as one single part, and they come with two different profiles, one that completely matches the shape of the bucking, and second one which is slightly concave. These are very similar to other aftermarket hop-up arms that are usually recommended as upgrades in combination with R-hop, so there's no need to get a separate hop-up arm, as these work perfectly. For those who are using larger scopes with extenders, the kit also comes with a grub screw, so you can use that with an Allen key instead of a thumb screw, in case the clearance is an issue. Another great upgrade you can do is the previously mentioned R-hop. For those who are not familiar with what an R-hop is, it's basically a precisely cut piece of silicon tubing which fully covers the hop-up window on the inner barrel and is used to hop the BB. This increases the contact surface to the BB and therefore requires less pressure to give the same amount of backspin. This is often praised as one of the best upgrades you can do in airsoft, but just with anything, your mileage may vary. I personally found very small improvements over the stock bucking, but there are a lot of players who will say that it's the single best upgrade you can do to your gun. If you're interested, there are great R-hop patches made for SSG24 by Snipetor. Keep in mind that to use the R-hop, you will also need either a bucking that has the knob removed, or SORA Bucking made specifically for use with R-hops. Now, let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. This right here is M4 adapter for SSG24, and man, this thing is awesome. And before you go make a comment, yes, I know that this is not realistic, but remember that people play airsoft to have fun, and that most airsoft players are dressed up grown men running around with expensive toys. That said, it's ridiculously fun to play with this thing, and if you don't believe me, you can check out the video made by House Gamers, where he plays with a similar thing just made for a VSR platform. I use short style Vietnam M4 Midcaps, as they are relatively short and there's no rattle. The adapter also acts as an angled grip, which makes the handling of the gun much more comfortable. And the best part is that you basically never have to reload, as this midcap holds around 120 rounds and there are ones that hold up to 190. A few weekends ago I played a game with SSG10 and I had forgotten how frustrating it is to always be checking on how many BBs you have left in the magazine and not having a BB leave the barrel after pulling the trigger. The adapter acts just as a regular SSG24 magazine, so at any point you can just take it out and switch back to using regular SSG24 mags. The adapter is highly adjustable and is made to fit almost any M4 magazine perfectly with no wobble. And while it's almost entirely 3D printed, the quality is really good and it's designed to take a beating. And most parts can be replaced in case something breaks. Another topic that always comes up with sniper upgrades is how to make the gun quieter. There's been a ton of mods and information being posted on the SSG24 Owners Facebook group, so make sure you go ahead and join the group. I haven't gone to the extremes, but I have done quite several mods to make the gun quieter. So I actually did quite extensive testing on how each of these mods affect the loudness of the gun at 3 different distances using a sound meter. But that is a video by itself, so make sure you subscribe to the channel, as that's gonna be coming out very soon. But in short, here are the mods I've done. I swapped the inner and outer barrels to short versions and installed the Novritsch suppressor. I've done the can mod, where you wrap the spring guide with either aluminum tape or heat shrink to reduce the vibrations of the spring. I've padded the inside of the stock with some foam, and I've also modified the piston head to accept the SSG10 air brakes. Here's how the gun sounds before and after all the upgrades at 25 meters. As you can see, the difference is quite noticeable and overall totally worth the effort. There's one more significant upgrade I could do, and that is to install a SORA pad or a similar shock absorbing rubber on the cylinder head. There are also some smaller mods and accessories that make your life easier. In no particular order, here are the rest of them. I installed the trigger dust cover, as I'm really bad at keeping dirt out of my gun. Sometimes I'm amazed how much sand I can pour out of myself and my guns after a game day. I removed the tightening nut for the shoulder pad adjuster, as it was coming loose all the time and rattling. Most SSGs now come with the O-ring installed on the adjuster, so it's not coming loose anyways. And to do this, you have to take the shoulder pad all the way out, remove it, and then put it back in. I'm using this Bipod stud holder to make it easier to put the gun back together, as it can be quite annoying to align the Bipod stud every time you switch a spring or do some basic cleaning. While on the subject of changing springs, I'm also using the cylinder head nozzle wrench that makes the process a lot easier and without the risk of damaging the nozzle. It's super convenient, and especially if you're swapping out springs between games. It's a good practice to empty out the magazines after a game to make sure the springs in them don't decompress. For this I use the magazine unloader tool, which screws on top of the Novritsch ammo bottles and make the process super easy and clean. This way you can reuse the BBs without damaging them or getting them dirty. While this is not directly for the SSG24, every sniper has a sidearm, and you know the pain of pulling the tab on the bottom feed magazines, and that's basically impossible to do with gloves on. For this purpose, I use the Unicorn adapter, which, just like the SSG24 Speedloader adapter, mounts directly on the Speedloader itself and allows you to load any pistol magazine in a breeze. You just take the magazine, pull down the tab using the Unicorn adapter, and just fill up the magazine. Honestly, whenever I don't have this on hand, the whole process of loading pistol magazines just feels awkward and wrong. That about wraps it up. Again, all the links to the mods and products I mentioned are down in the video description. Hopefully you found the video useful, and let me know in the comments if there are things I missed or you would like me to touch on next. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss out on the video where I compare each of the sound mods, how effective they are, and how the SSG24 compares to the SSG10 in terms of loudness. Stay safe guys, and I'll see you in the next one.